So good morning. My name is Krista Haugen, and I'm a board member of the Air Medical Memorial and co-founder of the Survivors Network for Air and Surface Medical Transport. Welcome to the 2013 Air Medical Memorial Remembrance Ceremony. I know many of you have traveled quite a ways to be here this weekend, and we thank you so much for making the journey. To the families, friends, and colleagues of Andy, Karen, Jim, Jean, Shell, Russ, and Ray, and to the communities they served, please accept our deepest condolences. We are so very sorry for your loss. And to all of you, thank you for joining us here in this beautiful place. It is our hope to ultimately create within the Air Medical Memorial and Survivors Garden a peaceful and sacred space of rest, healing, and hope. A space that transcends the turmoil, chaos, conflict, and stress that comes after tragic losses such as these. A space where we can quiet our minds, sit with our own grief, and still graciously acknowledge the grief of another, where we can give comfort and be comforted. Today we gather for several reasons. We gather to honor those we've lost as professionals whose experience, skill, and compassion positively impacted countless lives. We also gather to be reminded that there is far more to these individuals than their professional lives, for they were mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, daughters and sons, sisters and brothers, step-parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, grandparents, fiancés, and best friends. And within each of those relationships lie a myriad of memories, and all are profoundly impacted by the loss of a person who is so integral to them. And so the main reason we gather is for you, their families, friends, and colleagues, to help you find comfort and hopefully to some degree healing. You may find healing in the words, prayers, music, or in the sharing of stories from those who knew them best. You may find comfort through those you meet today. Some of you will meet people here who have been where you are, who are familiar with your pain, and who are here to lend an ear or a shoulder. These are the people that have walked this path, who understand to the point sometimes where no words are even necessary. We gather so that many with similar experiences can come together to help each other find hope and healing, and so that you will know that as a community, we will never forget. Will you please stand for the presentation of the colors?
March time. March. Right wheel. March. Color guard. Halt.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard. Mark time. March. Ready. Face. Forward. March.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to invite Flight Chaplain Whit Dempsey from the Association of Professional Flight Chaplains to present the invocation.
Let us pray. God, in the beginning, you moved over the waters of chaos, creating order. And throughout time, you have given us friends and colleagues and brothers and sisters and sons who commit their lives to continuing to fly over the chaos of our worst days. And we give you thanks for their lives and for their dedication. This morning we come before you bound together by grief and loss to honor those who have died, fellow crew members, friends, and family who dedicated their lives to saving others. We know that you weep with us in our pain, O Lord, for they died too soon, too young. Shock and anger and sorrow and raw pain have been the landscape of our grief. The tears have come, and they will come again. And we remember your words this day, blessed are those who mourn. Yet like an eagle flutters over her young, you spread your wings over us and catch us in your love. Because your wings of compassion cover us, we find the strength to share stories of their lives, stories that make us laugh and smile again. And remembering together, our hearts begin to heal. Our hearts begin to heal when we remember their love for this work, and the amazing work they did on a certain flight or on a certain day and saved a life and made the difference in the world. We give you thanks, O Lord, for who they were, all that they gave, and now that we ask that you bless us now as we remember and honor our friends and colleagues and family members this day. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Whit. I'd like to now introduce Tim Pickering of ARIVAC EMS.
Good morning. I'm very humbled and honored to be in front of you today as we all work together to remember those who have gone before us and celebrate. I'd like to begin with a quote from a wonderful man that I have fortunately grown to know and love. Eric Johnson, the executive director of Supporting Heroes, has said many times, public safety professionals don't lose their life, they give their lives. I'd like us to think today about what this means to all of us. Those who are grieving the gift of someone's life and aiding others. Those they touched every day as they worked and built their everyday relationships across the spectrum of the lives that they lived. It means we must be thankful. Thankful for the times we spent together in joy or pain, in pleasure or strife. It must be thankful for the time that we spent together and thankful for their gifts. These gifts are more than tangible. They gave their lives for people they knew not. They gave us the gift of learning to prevent their episode of giving from reoccurring. And most importantly, they gave us the gift of knowing them. I will relate to you that I've just come from honoring the memory of some more folks that have given their lives in the service of others. This past Saturday, we concluded a series of remembrances by which we solemnly laid their remains to rest, celebrated their individual lives, and brought the continuum of their lives within ours so that we can carry all of those gifts of life forward. So what does it mean for us to carry these precious gifts of life forward? Today, here, we are part of that flow of life that comes from this giving. This flow is about remembering, and it's about learning. Proverbs 29:18 tells us, where there is no vision, the people perish. I want us to remember what our vision as responders is, to save lives. Those that we have lost kept that vision as they gave their lives. It reminds us all, every day, that we are keeping people from perishing. As we go forward from this place of beauty and rest, I'm losing track. As we go forward today from this place of beauty and rest, I want us to remember the gifts of life that we've been given and all that that means for all of those that they knew and loved and lived with. The worst thing that I can think of in the gift of the giving of life is to be forgotten. And that is what we are here today, to not forget and to celebrate for all time in this place the gift of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'd like to invite Lois Hinton and Deb Webb to the podium. They're flight nurses from REACT.
On December 10th, 2013 at 8:30 p.m.,
On December 10th, 2013, at 8:30 p.m., the React family experienced the devastating loss of 4 of its beloved family members. It has been 6 short months, and yet it still feels as though it happened yesterday. I want to introduce you to those brave and courageous souls that perished that night. Andy Olesen was a pilot with over 40 years of experience. He was a veteran, a loving husband to Patricia, a loving father to Tony and Michelle, and had been a crew member at React since 2007. Karen Hollis was a registered nurse with over 25 years of experience. She had been a flight nurse. I like to repeat myself. Karen was a loving wife to Scott, a loving mother to Sydney and Samantha, a beloved sister, and a very active community member. Jim Dillow was also a registered nurse and worked as a flight nurse for 10 years. Jim was the husband of Rachel, father to Shelby, Gabriel, Jacob, and Libby. He was also a cherished brother. Jim was an active member of his church. These 3 dedicated professionals cared deeply for God, their families, friends, and those who were in need. While the 4th member was not a living being, 9/11 BK, a Eurocopter, was still an integral part of the team. The ship had been transporting React members for 25 years. Her loss heartfelt, and although there will be other ships, 9/11 BK will always be and have a place in our hearts. We as a crew are honored to have the names of Andy, Karen, and Jim added to the Air Medical Memorial, along with those other heroes who gave everything, including their lives, for the good of others.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And Tammy, thank you as well. I'd like to invite Melody Piehl to come forward and share some thoughts about her husband, Russ.
When Russ walked into a room, everyone knew it. First, it was his crooked, beaming smile, then his rumbling laugh that was contagious to everyone, usually followed by the classic Russ smart-aleck comment. That was Russ. Russ was a man of strong faith. He lived life with an easygoing, laid-back, every day is an adventure type of attitude. Russ loved good old Southern rock music. He rode Harleys and looked forward to our many trips along the Mississippi River roads each year. Russ enjoyed golf and boating on the lakes of northern Iowa with family and friends. Russ was a die-hard Green Bay Packer fan. He stuck by those Packers even through the ugly years. He bleeds green and gold, and it was a guarantee that during football season you could find a Packer shirt underneath his flight suit on Sundays. Some of our greatest memories were our time spent at Lambeau Field, or God's country, as Russ described it. Russ was a true family man. Family meant everything to Russ. From countless volleyball, basketball, and softball games, holiday celebrations, or quiet weekends at home with Sunday cinnamon rolls, Russ was there. Trips to the Y, swimming with our grandson, baking pies in the kitchen, Or telling a joke and laughing so hard at his own joke, you ended up laughing right along with him. Not because the joke was funny, but because he was. Russ was there. Morning coffee, red velvet cake, old John Wayne movies, MASH, ribeye steaks on the grill, a cold Liney's. That was Russ. Fixing little boo-boos, helping a friend or helping a stranger, being a best friend or just being there. That was Russ. He was a son, a brother, an uncle. He was a proud father, an amazing Papa and Grandpa. He was a teacher, a mentor, and a friend. He was a flight paramedic, and he is my husband. He will always be loved and forever missed by many. Russ is a hero. His legacy will continue, not because of what happened the night of January 2nd, but because of the countless lives he has touched through the years and the people he has inspired to continue living history. He will never be forgotten.
It takes amazing courage to come up and speak about loved ones so personally. So we thank you. Thank you, Melody. I'd like to invite Dawn Hagan, flight nurse from Mercy Air, to share some thoughts about Jean.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of Jean's family. Christina had asked me to speak, and I feel this is a great honor. We, Jean's family, have been asked to describe who Jean was in life, about 500 words or less. So here it goes. To begin, Jean was the son of Clinton and Adele V. Grell, a brother to Dudley, Christopher, Jonathan, and Mary Ann, a nephew to Dorothy and Thomas Bethia. I knew I would screw that up. And Charles and Jean Greer, and an uncle to Ariana. He was a fiance to Christine and a soon-to-be stepfather to Christian and Connor. Jean was a friend to so many and a co-worker of many more. Jean was a college graduate with a Bachelor of Computer Science from the University of Texas at Austin, and worked as a computer system engineer, customer support manager, and director. While in that role, he lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, New York, Seattle, and Australia. Having done well in the computer world, he pursued his love of scuba diving into oceanography school. His interest in diving took him to the Caribbean, Hawaii, Mexico, Palau, and Fiji, to name a few. Jean was also an avid downhill skier. He trained to be an EMT and joined the ski patrol at Mount Bachelor in Bend, Oregon. He skied in Oregon, California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, Vermont, and Argentina. He also enjoyed water skiing, skydiving, and through it all, he was a serious student of the stock market. However, his strongest interest was in aviation. Jean was an airplane and helicopter pilot. He was a flight instructor and a tour pilot. He lived and flew tours in California, Hawaii, Alaska, and Las Vegas. Jean then became an EMS helicopter pilot, where he worked in Illinois, Missouri, and Iowa. And although he enjoyed his previous jobs, he found his last job the most rewarding. After Jean joined the EMS cadre of pilots, he reminded his family and friends often about the risks associated with medical air transport service. However, he was proud of what he was doing, actually acutely aware of how important and dangerous it was, and felt he was making a contribution to helping people. Jean was one of those people you watch because you might learn something. Chasing his passions was his way of living, really living. Jean believed life could be short, so the logical thing to do was to have fun with the time you have and not take any day for granted. He was a precious, fun-loving, though straight-laced guy. He had a quick smile and an infectious laugh. He was analytical, intelligent, and careful. He didn't care to be bothered with trivial talk of politics or policy. He was kind and respectful, honest and caring. Gene loved and was loved. Gene was an individual who was always true to his word, loyal to his family and friends, and adhered to hard work ethic from his early teens. In other words, you could depend on him for anything. So in conclusion, it could be said that he not only lived each day well, but his life had meaning and many people benefited. Those of us left behind continue to cope with the disbelief and heartache, but Gene is not gone, not really. He is still here with us. He lives in our thoughts, our memories, and our hearts. He still lives on in the lives of the patients that he helped to save. And though it is grievously undeniable that his life ended too soon, our lives are so much richer for having known him. And we will continue to live like Gene.
I'm Tanya Knudsen. I'm one of the flight nurses with Mercy Air Med, and I'm going to give a coworker point of view / friend point of view of our three that we lost. I will slaughter this immensely, Russ, so please, I apologize for it. Good morning, sunshine. This is something I would hear every morning when I would walk into work and Russ was there. He's very much a morning person where I am not. And in fact, Russ, Gene, and Shell all know this very well and are laughing right now because I'm up doing this before 10 a.m. You could always count on having a good day when Russ was at work. He would make you laugh, or just hearing him laugh would put a smile on your face. As another coworker pointed out, he had a way of lightening up the mood when he was around. If it was giving a coworker a hard time or joking with the patients, Russ made it fun to be at work. Russ was a very caring individual. I mean, caring, like a lot of stuff in his pockets. You could say he was our walking PR guy. He had everything from scissors, carabiners to coffee cups, the ceramic kind of coffee cups, in his pockets, ready to be given out to the local ambulance personnel, whether it be when they came into the ER or on a scene flight or at the outlying facilities. To the point some of the outlying facility staff members would ask him for the stuff. Russ, as you learned earlier, that Russ was a very proud shareholder and huge fan of the Green Bay Packers. Whenever he had any downtime, he was finding the latest news on the Packers. It really never slowed down during the year. Preseason, postseason, during the season, it didn't matter. He was looking it up all the time. My husband and I had the opportunity to go to a game with Mel and him. I told him it had to be at the Metrodome, which is the Viking Stadium, because I was not sitting outside. He did this only if I promised to go to a Green Bay Packers game with him at Lambeau. We also were able to watch the last regular season game with him and Mel. It was the Vikings versus the Packers, and the Vikings had to win this game in order to get into the playoffs. So game day came, and after a week of rousing, game day came, and the Packers didn't start out so well that day. That made Russ really nervous. After the first play, I think he came out with a rally hat. And then he went and got the Super Bowl ring. And then he changed his shirt several times. It just went on. And then he repositioned his chair. And then he did some dance. It went on and on. Well, they lost. The Vikings won. Which, it was great. Actually, I think I remember posting or texting a picture to Shell that day saying, look at this hat that he's wearing for this, and she continued to give crap. I think Don ended up calling him a couple times, giving him crap about the game. The next week was the playoff game, and Vikings were playing the Green Bay again. Russ was able to help the Packers win that game because he was there in spirit. There's a survey that we had to fill out at work all the time, or yearly at least. It asked, one of the questions I asked if there's a best friend at work. I've answered this question yes every year for the last 14 years. This is because of Shell. Shell made me feel welcomed as a new nurse when I entered the ER. I had a lot going in my life at the time. I had just gotten married, I moved to a little itty-bitty town, and I started a new job. Her and I, we hit it off. We went shopping, went on several vacations, and danced on pools and bars together. The night Jay and Shell met, I was working. It was a going-away party for Jason Watkins, who was actually here today as well. My husband and Jay decided to go because Jay was told that maybe Shell might be there, and he had to be introduced to her. Apparently, it turned into one of those parties that everyone talks about for weeks and months and years. I was getting hourly updates at work. Mind you, I was working a 2-to-2 shift in the ER, and as Saturday nights go in the ER, and when you want to get off early, it never happens. So at 4 a.m., I finally got off work, and I turned into the DD for Jay and my husband. And as soon as I got there, I gathered that Jay and Shell had met that night, and this also required another girls' trip to Vegas. Once Jay and Shell were married, 2 beautiful girls came along. They were her world. I thought Shell liked to shop before, but having babies took this to a whole nother level. It's also a good thing she had girls, because I don't think boys would like to be dressed in pink. Now, they could tolerate being dressed in Iowa Hawkeye clothing. Well, except for her stepson could not. He's an Iowa State fan. And how he got her to let him have Iowa State stuff in the house, I don't know, but his room is decked out in Iowa State stuff. When Shell was at work, or wasn't at work, she was shopping or planning her next vacation. She was hanging out with her neighbors, watching the kids play. They'd become close after a few years of Shell getting used to being in a small town. Russ and Mel, Shell, Jay, and I, my husband, as well as a few of our friends, all went to the local casino there for a concert to celebrate New Year's Eve on December 29th, because most of us were working on New Year's. It was an awesome time, and it was a wonderful weekend for us, as we gave Russ a hard time for that Packers game the next day. So we had a wonderful weekend. As far as Gene, I wish I could have got to know him a little bit better. Given the schedule and stuff, we really hadn't worked all that much together. But what I had learned was amazing. He had a long, extensive history of flying helicopters, of which you just learned. He loved to fly. He flew lots of places like Oregon, Hawaii, and Vegas. And his last base was in the St. Louis, Springfield area. He was a adventurous person. He loved to scuba and downhill ski. The one thing I do like to do is get to know our pilots, try to get to know our pilots, and I would spend time talking with Gene. And the one thing that he would always talk about was Christine. You could tell he was head over heels in love with her. He would show us pictures of their most recent vacation, ask our opinions on gifts for her, is this the right thing to get someone who had just graduated from nurse practitioner school. He was so proud of Kirsten's accomplishments. He was also very excited about moving to Iowa City and buying their new house for their new life together, and showing the latest houses they had just been through. As a crew, we did catch on to the fact that he was one to analyze things before just jumping into doing it, whether it be flying or learning about the personalities of the crew. He told Shell one morning he didn't know who was more outspoken, her or I. My comment that I made to him was apparently he hadn't met Dawn yet, and at that point in time he hadn't. Of course, we razzed him for that as well. He was also a planner. It just amazed me that he had all of his Christmas presents wrapped and mailed before the 1st of December. He and Shell would get along great. I'd like to close with a poem that one of the friends of Russ wrote. As the helicopter left Mason City and flew out of sight, 3 brave souls set out to do their duty as they did many a night. Little did they know that ahead lay a different fate, one that none of us could hardly anticipate. The mission at first seemed very normal indeed, to go forth, use their good skills, help someone in need. However, near Ventura, a new plan developed, apparently as God was in need of a pilot, a nurse, and a paramedic, you see. In life are many factors that we cannot control, so put faith in God, trusting Him with our very soul. As professionals, the risks do often cross our mind, but at the end of the shift, our way back home is what we hope to find. But unfortunately, for these 3 fine people had to leave, and the rest of us are left behind to grieve. So Russ, Shell, and Jean, as a new life in heaven, you do start. We keep your memories in our thoughts, our prayers, and in our hearts.
Thank you, Donna, Tanya. I'd now like to introduce Mike Moyer. Mike was on board the aircraft that crashed, taking the life of Ray Shriver, and was able to render aid and comfort in Ray's last moments. So he's here to share a couple of thoughts about Ray.
Hi, my name is Mike Moyer. I'm with Teton County Search and Rescue, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. You've heard the saying, train like you fight, and you'll fight like you've trained. Ray Shriver and I worked together for almost 20 years in search and rescue. And Ray worked for many, many years as a K9 search and rescue dog handler with multiple saves to his credit. Ray was also our training director for many, many years. And Ray was known to be committed to realistic training, challenging scenarios, working as hard, very hard, to be prepared. When things are at their worst, training and preparation pays off, as it did on February 15th, 2012. I'm grateful and will forever be grateful to Ray for his dedication and professionalism that contributed directly to the survival of pilot Ken Johnson and myself. The legacy that Ray has left his teammates and his sons, Matt and Zach, will continue to make a significant impact in the lives of others for years to come. Particularly as Matt follows in his footsteps in emergency services. Matt, as you're here as Zach follows in his footsteps. Zach, as you're here today, I challenge you to continue to follow in his footsteps with the professionalism and quality of service that you provide to many, many people. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And finally, I'd like to invite Tammy Chapman to share some thoughts.
Touch of a hand, a smile on our face, a reassuring look that is never out of place. We've given them memories that remain etched in their minds of the angels who showed up at just the right time.